I'm Markus, and I'm also a researcher at the Institute of Neurology at Queen's Square in Bloomsbury here. So the next speech is again science and not art. And it's about Parkinson's disease and about how Parkinson's disease and art are related. And I will also tell about something, therapeutic approach, which is called brain stimulation, and how this can help patients with Parkinson's disease. But actually talking about Parkinson's means talking about London, because the first description of Parkinson's disease was made about 3 miles down Euston Road to the east in Shoreditch, because James Parkinson was living in the number 1 Hoxton Square. He was born there, he lived there and practiced there all his life, so it's a very local phenomenon actually. And in the early 19th century, he was writing an essay on the shaking palsy. That's how he termed his essay. And in this essay he described 3 patients which he spotted on the streets of London these days. So what is tremor? Tremor is just a tremor of your upper limb. So the shaking of your upper limb mostly starts in one hand before it really spreads to the other body parts and also to the other sides. And this is what the tremor is about. Then you have what is called rigidity, and Parkinson's called it palsy. So it's a stiffness of your body that you want to move but you can't move. And the third major symptom of Parkinson's disease is bradykinesia, which literally means slowness of movement. So patients with Parkinson's disease, they try to be as fast as you and me, but they can't. So they are really slow in their movement. And Parkinson was already putting this in very nice words when he wrote involuntary tremulous motions with less than muscular power in parts not in action and even when supported, with a propensity to bend the trunk forward and to pass from a walking to a running pace, the senses and intellects being uninjured. This is a very good description of Parkinson's disease, but more than words can be said with illustrations. And this is where art comes into play. And another Londoner, so we stay local and go to Hackney, which is Sir William Richard Gowers. Gowers was a neurologist at Queen's Square, and apart from his medical interests, he was also very much into arts. He even contributed to the summer the summer exhibition of the Royal Academy. So he had 2 talents and was bringing these together primarily for teaching purposes. So he was trying to bring across how neurological conditions look like by making drawings. And here you see a drawing of him, of a Parkinsonian patient, and you see this bent forward posture, which is very typical for Parkinson's disease. And actually, just this summer there has been a release of a book about him and his life, so who is more interested in this. And the link between Parkinson's disease and art becomes even closer in a person called Frank H. Netter. He's not from London this time, but from New York. And he was a trained artist. And he was even starting to make money with his arts. So he was working for the New York Times, for example. But then somehow his family disapproved his career as an artist. He wanted him to do something more serious, and they kind of agreed that he should join medical school. And when he joined medical school, it doesn't take too long that he could make some extra money by making drawings. So his teachers and the professors were asking him to make drawings for publications and for their lectures. So he could already start to make money on this. But he actually finished his medical school and even started to practice as a physician. But then shortly after this, he always stopped again, because he found out that art was bringing him more money when he was just drawing about medical conditions. And this is what he did. And actually, he has a very famous book called The Atlas of Human Anatomy. And in this book, he draws the entire human body and even some medical conditions. So he was really using his talent in arts to bring across medical knowledge. And this is why he is also sometimes called the Michelangelo of medicine. But when we speak a little bit more about Parkinson's disease, what do we really know about Parkinson's What you see here in the movie is the resting tremor of the patient. This is very typically. So when they rest, they have this pill-making tremor, what is this called? And this is constantly going on. Basically what is only known is that there's a small part of the brain, which is called substantia nigra, which literally means the black tissue, which is primarily affected. So in this tissue, there are neurons which produce a neurotransmitter, which is important for movement, which is called dopamine. And these neurons die. And as a result of this, the symptoms develop. But the symptoms don't develop only in this one structure, but these tremors involve a whole network of brain regions which are involved. And what you see here is a network of brain regions which are involved in the generation of this very typical tremor. So all these parts of the brain are involved, not only a small part, but different parts. And what has been developed about 20 years ago is a therapy option which is called deep brain stimulation. Because what you can do is to interrupt this network which is producing the tremor, to relieve the patient from this symptom. And what you do is you place electrodes into the structures which are involved in this network and give electric currents exactly in one of these players within this network. And doing this, you can interrupt the symptoms and release the patients from the symptoms. And this is a video of a patient who has already implanted such a stimulator. But the stimulator is now off. So you see a very typical tremor, so very pronounced. And you might imagine that this is really kind of disabling and unpleasant. But as soon as the stimulator is then turned on, you see that the tremor really vanishes. This is what now happens. So now the stimulator is on, and the tremor, you can't really see any of this tremor. And this is not only true for the tremor, but also for other kinds of movement, for example, also for walking. So this is a patient with no stimulation, walking, and this is how the walk of the patient looked like. And this is when the stimulator is on. So it's not a cure, but it dramatically relieves the patient from these symptoms. So very nice effects in a lot of patients. We started with a Londoner talking about Parkinson's disease, so I also want to finish up with a Londoner. And this is a guy called Oliver Sacks, who was born in London and then had his medical training in Oxford, but then moved to New York. And he's a neurologist and a writer at the same time. And actually he's a quite successful writer, so he has a couple of best-selling books. One of these is called The Man Who Mistake His Wife for a Hat, where he collects neurological cases. So he describes several patients with rare neurological cases and helps us to better understand how neurology works and what's behind it. Another book which some of you might know is Awakenings. It's also the basis for the movie Awakening with Robin Williams and Robert De Niro. So this is also work from Oliver Sacks. And in the video we are now playing, this is about the effect of music in Parkinsonian patients.
Music has always been important for me personally. I grew up in a musical household. I like a musical background. Sometimes music animates me, it calms me, it consoles me. It plays a great part in my own life. But I was fascinated more than 40 years ago when I was working with the patients whom I later described in Awakenings, these deeply Parkinsonian patients, to see the power of music with them. These were people who, when the disease was severe, couldn't move and couldn't speak. They were motionless and they were transfixed, and no effort on their part would work. But music could sometimes release them and give them a flow. So people who couldn't take a step could dance. People who couldn't utter a syllable could sing. And this power of music to release people with Parkinson's is very remarkable and very fundamental. And music therapy was absolutely crucial for these people, and it still is. The aspect of music which seems especially crucial is rhythm. And really people with Parkinson's, due to damage in a particular part of their brain, have difficulty generating sequences, generating rhythm. Music gives them time, sequence, rhythm, gives them tempo, gives them back their own tempo. Sometimes people with Parkinson move too fast or too slowly. You know, music gives them back a normal tempo. You don't have to have a music therapist. If you have a little iPod which plays music, that can do. But music is very, very crucial for Parkinson's. With one of the patients who was very musical and who knew all Chopin by heart, she would in fact spend much of the day completely frozen, usually with a finger on her eyeglass, but if one could get her to the piano, she could play. And she was very fond of all Chopin. She very much liked the Chopin Fantasy in F minor. So, again. And so forth. However, she didn't actually have to play it on the piano. If one simply said to her, Opus 49, this would stimulate its mental playing, and its mental playing would be done at exactly the rate of the external playing. It would take just 14 minutes, and in those 14 minutes she would be free from Parkinsonism. And the moment the last chord was played mentally, she was back.